Hello and welcome to the Bodyslam Night One of WrestleMania 38 post show. I am the Jameus, editor here at Bodyslam. I do a lot of our podcast. If you've seen my work, I'm sorry. But I'm your host tonight. I am joined by one of Bodyslam's more recent hires, one of our best MMA guys, and another one of our pro wrestling guys, Rami Hanna. Rami, how are you?
Doing great tonight. How about you, buddy?
Fantastic. So, what before we get into anything, what do you think of the show?
I came in with not the biggest expectations of it. I was looking forward to, of course, the Seth Rollins match because I was hoping that who would come out. And
Shane McMahon, right?
oh yeah, definitely have Shane O'Mac. But as the show progressed and went on, I enjoyed it more and more and more. And as soon as it ended, I thought it was an incredible show from start to finish.
I feel about the same. I didn't have high hopes for the Rousey Charlotte match, which actually was about as good as it was going to be. I don't think it was that good, but I could see moments where it was. I was very excited for the Bianca Belair Becky Lynch match. I think they more than delivered. I actually think it's the greatest WrestleMania women's match of all time, and I'll go into that later. Um, but like you, I was very excited for Cody Rhodes, and I think tonight was one of the biggest moments in WrestleMania history because of how symbolic it was. What? So let's start with that. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, appears as Seth Rollins' opponent. What were your initial thoughts on that?
I was losing my mind as soon as I heard the intro that he usually comes out for All Elite Wrestling. Immediately just bursted out in like this a big pop. I think it's amazing that he came back because I cannot recall the year that he left, but when he did, I was
6 years ago, 2016. It was the year
2016.
after Drew.
Was seeing that there was reports saying that they offered him 500,000, but he did not want to take that. Decided to go and go on the Indies, New Japan. And he started up with the Young Bucks and with everybody AEW. And coming back, it was reported that he was making $3 to $4 million now, and it's like he took the ball and ran with it instead of with constantly complaining and going into a downfall like you other certain wrestlers have. And I think it's great to see him come back to the WWE to show that he's not gonna, what do you call it, quit again, or like just like just take his to go to indies and do all this other stuff. He wants to come back. He wants to show them that he's the best in the world, and hopefully I we can see him winning a world championship or the intercontinental championship, which I believe was his first singles championship.
He won it twice. Yes, sir. It was his only singles championship in his first run, I believe. But I agree that
Crazy.
I think it's imperative that he comes in as and immediately wins a world championship. And I say that because somebody like Cody Rhodes, he took the Drew McIntyre blueprint. Because if you remember, Drew McIntyre left. Actually, funnily enough, his former tag team championship partner, Drew McIntyre, left and went on the independents, worked What Culture Pro, worked everywhere around the world, had this one of the most hectic schedules in wrestling history to build himself back up, came back as an immediate player in NXT and ended up going on this long odyssey to finally become WWE champion. Cody Rhodes took a similar blueprint and expanded on it. Because what Cody Rhodes did was the same thing until him, Kenny, Nick, and Matt changed the game and created competition. And every WWE mid carder that was either cut for budget or is thinking about their release right now is watching how Cody Rhodes is going to be handled, because if they can leave, come back, they now have competition because of Cody Rhodes. Kenny the Bucks too, but Cody Rhodes is a driving force to create competition to where they can rebuild their stock a lot quicker than Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes did a wonderful job in Ring of Honor, Impact, everywhere he went to rebuild his stock. But it took him 6 years to get back here. And $3 to $4 million in WWE as an average annual value on your contract is not pennies on the dollar. That's a really good wage historically for a pro wrestler. So Cody created a blueprint to where somebody can come and have success and come back. Matt Cardona is a guy. I don't quite know if he'd still succeed when he came back, but he's getting everything he can out of the Indies right now. GCW, NWA, Impact, everywhere. Guys like that. So when you're looking at the state of the wrestling, somebody who's stuck in a status quo may leave, come back later on and to be a bigger star. Or, and this is another reason it's imperative, if you're Max Friedman and you're definitely at least going to play the WWE card when your AEW contract comes up and you haven't signed an extension. I do know he signed an extension through 2024 recently, but when 2024 comes, if you want to stay in AEW, great. That's probably the best place for MJF regardless. But now you see Cody's success. He can either use that as leverage, or there's a real chance that he may feel WWE could utilize him correctly because they used Cody Rhodes correctly. If they don't utilize Cody Rhodes correctly and all of those performers, when their contract is off the books, look at it and go, I'm not going to be used correctly here, WWE is not going to have as much leverage as AEW. And that's why it's essential that WWE uses Cody Rhodes to his max value immediately out of the gate. I really enjoyed the fact he came out to Kingdom, which Downstate created the moment he left the first time. He owns that music. It was never AEW's in the first place. But the excessive pyro, the look didn't change, the introductory dialogue, the prologue to his music. Everything about the presentation was perfect tonight. It was exactly what you needed it to be, because changing Cody Rhodes back into Dashing Cody Rhodes or Grotesque Cody Rhodes or Stardust or Mustache Man would not have had the same impact as AEW's not founder, but one of their founding stars, because it was the Elite. Him, Bucks, Kenny, and Paige were the first 5 talents to sign. Getting one of their original 5 guys, core guys, is a big statement. Getting one of their EVPs is a massive statement, because that was Cody's baby. Like, that's a massive statement. You have to capitalize on that, and I feel they did a wonderful job the moment he came out on capitalizing that. Where they go going forward, I'm not sure, because I don't necessarily have the most faith in WWE to not go for a double when they hit one to the gap, but who knows?
He'll go for the 24/7 championship.
Cody versus Reggie.
Hey, that's ratings.
I like Reginald, but I thought, what do you think of the match itself?
Honestly, I enjoyed it. I expected it to be the same type of match feeling how I had with but like, even though it already had, I believe it had build up towards it. Juice Robinson versus Cody for Wrestle Kingdom, I believe the first time
It was
around.
a really good match too.
Huh?
It was a really good match too.
Yeah. I expected to have like that same type of feeling, but I feel like it what do you call it? Like, exceeded my expectations. And I feel like Seth did an amazing job at being able to welcome Cody back into the WWE after being in AEW for so long and having to deal with that type of style of, like professional wrestling. Like, he's gonna have to deal with all these hard hitting guys who are just going to put on the best matches possible. And then now you're here with Seth having to control the crowd, having to make sure you're still in your element, making sure the crowd doesn't turn on you at any given time. And I feel like they both did an amazing job, both with presenting the match, going through with it, and the ending of it. Of course, paying respect to his father
Homage.
by Ahmed's, thank you. Paying homage to his father with the bionic elbow and the crossroads. I believe he did 4 crossroads. I was
Yeah.
at one point I was like, come on, man. After 2, I was like, you can go for the pin here. You know, at any point he'd be already finished. But overall, a great match. I loved it, and I also want to see where Seth goes with this because he got his match at Mania, but are they gonna have a future match at WrestleMania Backlash, or will they just go their separate ways and face off in the future? It's exciting to see what could possibly happen with the two of them. But Cody, I personally feel like him going in and for a world title would be big, but I feel like him defeating Ricochet for the Intercontinental Championship would be bigger because it carries him on as that guy who wins the mid card championships and does his best to carry them like he tried with AEW with the television championship.
I don't think the title does much for him. I don't mind if Cody doesn't win the world championship right away. I would like to see more of an AJ Styles 2016 type run, where if AJ came in January, and I think he beat Dean Mox, whatever you want to call him, in December. No, he didn't beat him in December, but he beat him
In
in
May,
September. September.
it was in September.
Because the brand split didn't happen yet. May was Money in the
Oh
Bank when he beat
yeah,
John
you're
Cena.
right about that.
So a run like that would be fine. For the match itself, I liked the commendation toward Dusty. I liked the commendation, the acknowledgement towards Dustin because he did a lot of Dustin spots. I like that one thing underrated part about this match I didn't see many people point out. Seth did a deep dive into his arsenal because he wasn't prepared. And I think that was a nice touch. Like he did an avalanche reverse suplex into the um, curtain call from Dustin. But if you go back to he's done that in WWE maybe twice. If you go back to his indie Ring of Honor days as Title Black, he would do that spot into the paroxysm, which is what he did with the spin. So the slam part with the spin.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't done that in years. And it used to so he not knowing in kayfabe what was coming made him dig deep. You could feel that perturbance and anxiety in everything he did. I thought that was perfect. I think Cody did a wonderful job kind of acclimating himself back in. There were certain spots you could tell he was thrown off a little bit. Like you could tell he wasn't sure how to catch his footing on the ring post because he's never worked with a ring post LED pole, which he'll get to in time. Um, I there was a spot early in the match. There were times it was sloppy, like the moonsault spot. The first time he went for the moonsault, you could tell the muscle memory said go for the Cody cutter because his arms did this, and before he contorted himself for a moonsault, and it just didn't come across well to me. But other than that, I liked the finish. I really liked the idea of him pulling him up because he knew Seth wasn't done. I thought that was a nice touch. Seeing Cody in the ring is back in the ring is cool. I'm ecstatic to see where it goes. I don't think you need to revisit this match, but you always could. Um, so yeah, that was a fun match. Probably the second best match of the night for me. Um, Overall, I grade that very, very well. And I'm pleased that the presentation for Cody was the exact same as AEW. I think that was perfect. I knew it was him the moment I saw the excessive pyro because that's Cody's calling card at this point. Just good stuff all around. And Seth was great during the entire time before Cody even came out. Like he's just this run he's on right now of obnoxiousness is perfect. And it sold everything really well. I really just enjoyed everything about it.
I loved it. It was an amazing match. I hope for Cody to, exceed expectations with his run. And I'm hoping to see where it leads Seth into the future because I'm glad he didn't face Shane McMahon because that was just the worst
Oh,
report
I
I
was
ever saw in my
joking.
life. No, I'm just saying like those reports earlier in the week of people saying it was going to be Shane McMahon. I'm just like, please don't ever say that. Like I never
Or
wanted.
Veer or somebody.
Oh, Veer would have been like epic. That would have been 6 stars in a
Joe
Tokyo
Goldberg
Dome.
was a name I saw thrown out as a joke, which would have
That,
been the ultimate troll. And I'm
when I saw,
so glad that didn't happen because I don't like Bill Goldberg.
when I saw Goldberg, I wanted to turn it off immediately. I was like, no, I don't want that. If the report of it could potentially be him, I was like, no, you guys can go away now.
But I think that's the biggest news. And not the second biggest news of the night. And the only reason this isn't the biggest is because we know he won't be there Monday. Arguably, probably the biggest name in the history of our business. Steve Austin. Kind of telegraphed that it was going to be a match the moment you saw he had his signature knee braces on.
Of course.
But Steve Austin finally had the right send off. And he main evented the WrestleMania for the first time. The anniversary of WrestleMania 17 was in the last 2 days. So give her just about 21 years since he last main evented WrestleMania. Tonight he was the main event of WrestleMania.
It's mind blowing. It was such an amazing moment when once Kevin issued a challenge. I thought it was amazing how he kept teasing it overall, just trying to get it to happen, and just Steve Austin just playing the silent role before having the crowd just answer for him.
I
Um,
thought the segment leading up to it, because one of my issue with nostalgia acts, and for if you listen to my Ring of Honor post show yesterday, I went over randomly on a Ring of Honor show, Survivor Series '96, Bret Austin. Like, I love Steve Austin. He's one of my favorite guys to watch work. He's one of my favorite guys to listen to talk. I didn't like recent Steve Austin in terms of since he retired. I don't like nostalgia acts that just play through the greatest hits. It just comes across lazy, disingenuous. It's not my cup of tea. I don't need to see it. It doesn't serve a purpose. So when Steve Austin starts doing his old phrases that he hasn't said in 20 years, the I pop big for you. I don't know how good your hearing is, but you've got 75,000 people calling you an asshole. Because that's something he said to Vince McMahon so often. And I was saying that along with him. Like, for me, that pops me so much more than a random what, because I hate the what anyway. You
yeah, the
know,
what's been the most annoying thing I've ever seen since I first started
which
watching pro
is the
wrestling.
point, because Austin never once said what like that until he couldn't get people to boo him during the alliance angle. Like
And
that,
people.
he didn't start doing that until his last year as a full-time active competitor. Like, for me, I don't think of what when I think of Steve Austin's prime run, because it wasn't his prime run. But it caught on. So here I am. I pop for the beady little eyes. Like that's the kind of Steve Austin stuff I remember. That's nostalgic for me. And it was nice to hear him bust out the phrases that vernacular he hasn't used in 20 years, as opposed to the same old Steve Austin promo. I
Yeah.
thought the match, you could tell he's lost a few steps. The match was what it needed to be, though. A nice brawl. Austin still has the best punch exchanges in the business when they're punching back and forth, because it always looks tight. You can never see the gap in his shots, and I think the working shot punches being tight makes those spots so much better. It's his footwork on it that was still there. The Samba mud hole, eh. I think the jean shorts constricted him a little bit, but you could tell he couldn't get his foot as high, which he's closer to 60 than he is 50. So, of course, that's as expected. It was nice to see him bump. KO got a lot more offense than I was anticipating. It was what it needed to be. A fun little match. My favorite part of the match, though, was about 20 years ago. for those who don't watch baseball, I cover baseball, so I cite Jeff Passan a lot as a source. There was a sign 20 years ago that said Jeff Passan isn't here while Steve Austin was making his entrance, and on this, or Jeff Passan isn't here, and then Steve Austin tonight when he came out during his entrance, Jeff Passan took a selfie with Steve Austin behind him and tweeted out, "I'm finally here," next to the picture of that sign. That was my tweet of the night. I just wanted to throw that out there.
It was historic.
It would be awesome to join wrestling media because he has the perfect personality for wrestling media. Because wrestling media as a niche has so much more fun than any other sport. And he's known for having a very fun personality within the context of a sport that really doesn't have many fun media personalities. But the moment was great. That was what it needed to be. I'm glad it didn't close the weekend. This was one of the good things about two nights. Where for me, what closes WrestleMania, whether I enjoy it or not, whether I'm looking forward to it or not, because I'm gonna be real with you, I'm not looking forward to the main event tomorrow. That story and match does not compel me at all. But they've built to it for a year. The WrestleMania should always be what you've built towards for on television for months and months and months. That should always close WrestleMania. So with two nights, you could put a moment like Steve Austin in the main event and not sacrifice that. So I enjoyed that. What were your overall thoughts on everything?
I enjoyed the Austin Owens match. Um, I also wanted to point out that I thought it's funny how usually when people are tired, when they're exhausted, they usually go for a bottle of water, like just something to rehydrate, Gatorade.
Yeah.
But Stone Cold always enjoys a nice cold one, and throughout the match is constantly drinking more and more on the announce table in the ring towards the end. I thought it was an amazing test they added for him. And when Owens hit him with a stunner, at first I was thinking in my head, if they ran with the finish of Owens pinning him, the crowd's gonna go berserk. They're gonna lose their minds here. So once Austin was able to kick out, and the finish did happen. I thought it was an overall good match for him
I
to
thought the
finish.
finish was really good. You know what I liked about the finish? And Austin did this a lot while he was working. I like that Steve Austin put his hand on the outside arm of Kevin Owens. It's a small, subtle detail that why wouldn't you? It makes it harder for him to kick out. Love that. Austin always did it. I've always loved that in Austin's work. My favorite part of the match was that Kevin Owens was just like Steve Austin used to do. I thought that was great. But yeah, that was a fun match. What was your favorite match of the show? Because I think I know you're going to say.
Of course, you know what I'm about to say. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship. It was a phenomenal match, and I ain't talking AJ Styles. And I felt that from start to finish, this match built up perfectly from last year's SummerSlam till now, just building that up between the two of them. And every week, Becky tormenting Bianca until this past week, where Bianca finally got revenge, and tonight got the win. I thought it was an amazing ending to a run that was so craved by the fans. Because you look on Twitter, you look on social media, and everyone's just buzzing, everyone's happy about it. If Becky would have retained, it would have been great. But I feel like Bianca getting this win just builds up to what a storyline should be. Like this is the best ending you can possibly get, and that's a new champion and Bianca hopefully facing new challengers in the future, with potentially either it being Bailey or Asuka if they do return in the near future, probably tomorrow night or on this upcoming SmackDown.
I think I disagree. I think, and I'm wearing a Becky Lynch shirt. Anybody who's followed my work over the years knows that I think Becky Lynch is the single greatest women's wrestler of all time at this point. I don't think Becky Lynch winning would have been conducive to anything. I think it had to be Bianca Belair. That was the only way you were going to save her. I think everything was great because if you go back to WrestleMania 35, when Becky Lynch won the first main event, Ronda Rousey gets Joan Jett. Joan Jett's one of the biggest rock and roll stars of her era. She was the guitarist for the Runaways, which was the first major female band. Then Joan Jett and the Blackhearts were a chart sensation. She got Joan Jett performing her to the ring. Charlotte Flair got a freaking helicopter. What was Becky Lynch's special entrance on that, Rami?
I don't remember it being that special.
She walked to the ring to her normal entrance music, and people held up signs that said the man. But people in the crowd. It was a normal entrance because she was the opposite of what corporate wanted in story. So why would they give her a big special attraction entrance? They wouldn't. They don't want her there. Now, and this shows the evolution of the Becky Lynch character. I'm going to circle back to this after I go through the match a little bit. As Big Time, she got a huge special attraction entrance with her own Then Now Forever, her own vehicle, among other things, because she's Big Time. She's their superstar. Perfect bookend for this run on Becky Lynch. The rise to the man to now. I thought that was perfect. But on the other note, I thought Bianca had one of the best entrances I've ever seen. And I'll tell you why. The marching band playing with her music beat line was fantastic. And she looked like such a star as she walked. But you know what sold it for me?
What's up?
Becky was stoic. Her expression didn't change, but she was irate the entire time. You could tell she was angry, but unfazed. She wouldn't let Bianca get under her skin. I thought that was a very nice touch. Becky sold that perfectly. As for the match, I think it was one of the best women's matches I've ever seen. The psychology was perfect. Everything they did had a why to the what, which is everything in wrestling needs. There was a sense of urgency for both and everything. There was a lot of just small details. For example, when Becky wrapped her hair when she did the hangman, I like that. Small things like just everything. And then Becky Lynch, you could feel the desperation and the anxiety, the vorticity when Bianca went for the KOD for the first time after Becky Lynch went to kick her in the corner. And then she had to dump her on the outside because the vorticity of Becky Lynch had thrown her off her game plan. Just wonderful all around. That entire spot was money. Everything that they did, the small callbacks to everything else in their feud. The callback in the opening segment where they got most people with the false finish. Like, just
I thought that was the finish. I was about to lose my mind.
I would have had, you know what my favorite spot about this match was?
What was it?
Becky Lynch does a backdrop on the floor while standing behind the apron. So Bianca springboard off the ropes to hit her with the next move. Who do I remember seeing do that constantly? I want to see if you know this.
I'm gonna go with I think I'll put a favorite of yours, Bret Hart.
No, Bret Hart never once did that move.
Ah, okay.
That's a Matt Hardy spot.
Okay.
Matt Hardy, if you go back to any time they were in a tables match, like the Dudleys at the Rumble, a TLC match, he always did that, and he always came back with the DDT. I love that spot, and I wish more took it. I would like to see Bianca do it again. The finish was outstanding. Becky kind of kicked her in the face. It kind of knocked her out a little bit on the Molly go round. I think that added to it, the physicality of it. It was intense. You could feel the intensity, the emotion, and everything they did. The match was fantastic. But I went back to WrestleMania 35 when Becky Lynch was the underdog for a reason. Because Becky Lynch, 2 weeks ago on Raw, when she cut that promo, which she's the best female promo ever. She never misses with a promo, never has and never will, because she's an incredible promo and can talk anybody into any building they need her to. She implied that the championship meant more to her than her own kid. That belt means that much to her. That is everything to Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch has forgotten what made the man the man. So what you do now is, if I have the book, you don't go back to Bianca Becky. You let Becky, pardon me, you let Lynch go the Rocky 3 route, where she had to prove to herself that she lost everything. She has to prove to herself she is the man. She is that good. You let her rediscover. She has kind of the last kick to look back after Bianca cut her hair. You let her rediscover Becky Balboa. You make her go back to the bottom of the line. Spend a year finding her way back to those seeds of doubts. Everything about it. Becky Lynch is a draw. She does not need the title. She does not need to be in the title picture. So now you wait until the Rumble to put her back in the title picture. You have her prove it to herself, rediscover what made her the lovable Becky Balboa, the steampunk ass kicker, the rise of the man, instead of big time Bex. And then she runs the table at the Rumble. And then you can either revisit Bianca again, you can revisit Rousey again. There's so many ways you could go, but that lets her work with some of the women below in the card, help them teach the psychology a little bit, because there's not a better psychological women's wrestler in that company than Becky Lynch. There are better athletes. There are athletes that can do more stuff, more moves, but there's nobody who paces their matches better. There's nobody who understands the why to the what better than Becky Lynch. So I think that would be perfect. And then you let Bianca have her finally get her run without losing in 26 seconds.
Yes.
That's what I'd do. I think Rocky 3 route with Becky Lynch would be perfect. And if anybody could pull it off and make it feel fresh, it's Becky Lynch, because she's that good with a microphone.
The Rocky 3 route sounds rich, honestly. I would go for it in a heartbeat, because how you described, they got me hyped. I'm thinking to myself, I would love to see them go into this exact type of route to be able to get back what they lost, just like how in Rocky 3 happened.
When Mr. T beats him with Clever Lang. Prediction? Pain. I love that line. Anyway, and Mickey dies, and he has to prove that he wasn't a fake champion because Mickey fixed all of his fights. Protected him. Becky Lynch doesn't want to be protected, but Becky Lynch is no longer protected because she lost everything to her character tonight. And that's why she's desperate. And that's why you can kind of build her back up once again to be that top babyface the same way as she was before, without sacrificing everything Becky Lynch is. So that's where I'd go with that. I'm sure I'm going to talk about it more in the future, because I talk about Becky Lynch a lot. You know this. So other than that, what next on the card did you enjoy the most after that?
There was matches on there that I enjoyed a lot. But I want to say one of the matches I was looking forward to and enjoyed the most was the Mysterios against the Miz and Logan Paul.
I know that's something I roll my eyes at every time it pops up in my Facebook feed. I don't like the pause. You love the pause.
It's not that I love the Paul. I feel like they've been able to grow up and stop being immature.
Logan has. Jake has not.
Logan has. Jake is very, very iffy, but
Jake
Logan.
is Jake.
Yeah, Logan's been able to better himself. He went into the 12-round fight with Floyd Mayweather, so almost, even finished it. He's been able to just better himself as a human being and going into this match, a lot of people are overlooking it, saying, why does he deserve this spot? And it's the truth, though. Why does he deserve this spot? Why should he be on WrestleMania where other people should be benefiting from it because they've worked their asses off to be able to get to this spot? But he went in here. I feel like he did a perfect job with executing his moves. He looked amazing doing the Three Amigos. I was impressed by it. I thought it was very natural, very clean, and he performed in a way that it just exceeded everything that I thought was going to happen. And I'm hoping he does more in the future, because after the ending of the
I think
Miz
he does too.
the Miz turning on him, I would love to see a match between the two happening. And I want to ask you this: who do you think is the face in this? Like, who do you think is the good guy? The Miz?
Absolutely, Logan Paul. But before I get to my thoughts on this match, this kind of ties in with my thoughts on this match. It is Dominic Mysterio is not good. His psychology is not good. He's awkward. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact he's trying to wrestle like his dad, and he's a lot bigger than his dad, but he's awkward. His footwork is not good. He's not a good professional wrestler. I think it's time they stop putting him in big spots. But I think it is a damning indictment when it's mortifying, really, when a celebrity who's never had a match before can come in the same match as one of your homegrown trained guys and just be so much better than he was at everything that professional wrestling has to offer. It is exasperating, and I've gone on record a lot of times on our shows that the PC, if you're previously trained, will tighten your screws, make you a significantly better worker, like we see with Alex Zane, who is so much better now after his PC run than he was before it. But you get a guy like Dominic Mysterio, who does not have that seasoning and has only been taught one way, and it's not good. He's not good. Their system doesn't work as training for guys. It works if you've already had the training. And Logan Paul came in and had a better showing than Dominic Mysterio, and I think that's very disconcerting.
Embarrassing.
Embarrassing's the word. That's embarrassing. That is flat out embarrassing. But you get, for Logan Paul, I was not looking forward to this. I do not like the Paul brothers. I did not expect to like anything Logan Paul did. I will say, I loved everything Logan Paul did.
I thought he performed well. I was just like losing my mind. I was like, because going into this, I just thought I'm hoping he doesn't pull out the same moves like like Bad Bunny did last year.
Oh,
Like
Bad Bunny was an all-time celebrity performance.
Oh, of course. I was hoping he wouldn't have to go to those lanes, like, to impress the crowd. He went with what he had to go for, with what he knew, and just he performed his ass off. I want to see him back in the ring as soon as
He looks
possible.
smooth. Like, for somebody who
Oh
never
yeah.
worked before. He didn't look smooth compared to some of the guys on the roster, but he's not a pro wrestler. For a guy who's never worked a pro wrestling match, he looked very smooth. And
Mhm.
there were small things in his performance. Like, he just got it. Like, I want to punch this douchebag in the face and everything he did. And that's exactly what they were going for. And that's why it worked. He understood the job. The heat he got on the Three Amigos.
Yeah.
And there
The
were a couple
crowd
times I laughed because he was funny.
the
Like,
crowd getting
I was a
so
lot more entertained by that match than I was expecting to be.
the crowd was so mad when he did Three Amigos and just went to the top rope. I thought it was an amazing add to the heat, and it mixed so well. He feels like a natural heel. Like, you just for someone who's going in there on a one night only match, potentially, maybe in the future he'll do more matches. But for right now, one night only, and doing this, he did. He exceeded a lot of expectations that people had, and people should give him the respect that he has earned tonight.
I do think we get another Logan Paul match. I mean, it would be very on brand for the Miz to turn on the guy because he doesn't like him getting attention. But I think they set something up. I think the Miz is the right guy because Logan Paul had a good showing, but Logan Paul is not a fundamentally sound wrestler. The Miz is a guy who's going to protect anybody he's in the ring with. His style is very safe. If you're putting Logan Paul in a sink or swim situation in a one-on-one match, the Miz is as good as anybody to throw out there. So I do think we get another Logan Paul match. So the next big match on the card, the result surprised me a little bit. Charlotte Flair retained the women's championship over Ronda Rousey. What were your thoughts on this match?
I was expecting Rousey to walk out with the championship, and I was just the entire time just thinking that, just leading towards it.
Perplexing, wasn't it?
Huh?
It was perplexing, wasn't it?
But as soon as the finish happened and they went with that, I don't know why, but the finish felt kind of rushed, but it didn't feel rushed in my like. It was like a 50-50 for me of feeling rushed, but I just what do you call it? Didn't necessarily enjoy it. I feel like if they would have went with something more it felt more suitable for me.
I
It would
don't
have been
think it
good.
fit the story.
It didn't fit the story at all.
I don't think anything. I don't think they told a story. And I might catch flack for this. I've said on multiple podcasts, I actually went on a long 20-minute rant where nobody could argue with me about on one of our podcasts about how Charlotte Flair is the most overrated wrestler in the world. Best athlete they have, other than maybe Bianca. But her matches are always rough. For me, you could tell she was calling the match, which obviously Rousey's not a ring general. Rousey's not going to call the match. The turnbuckle spot did not look good. The moon spot looked horrendous. The psychology is awful. So the entire match, Rousey's working on the arm, but she tries to beat her with an ankle lock. And then the figure eight comes, and I hate the figure eight. It's my least favorite finisher in wrestling. It doesn't look painful. And if you work on the legs, back, or arms at any point throughout the match, she should not be able to apply it. It's psychologically a bad wrestling finisher. I don't like it.
It's not entertaining.
Right after she worked on the ankle, she locks in the figure eight. But she also worked on the arm throughout the match, and she didn't have any issue with the arm on the figure eight. And no-sold every piece of offense Rousey did, and the offense Rousey didn't psychologically make sense in the first place.
The match that those two had at Survivor Series
Was overrated too.
It felt like a continuation of that match. That's what, but this time with a finish instead of a DQ happening. But it still felt unsatisfying. It didn't feel like it added anything towards it. So I thought we were gonna get a good ending, like how we got with Belair and Becky.
I have a question for you.
What's up?
Charlotte Flair's matches with anybody not named Becky Lynch, Asuka, Sasha Banks. Name me a single satisfying Charlotte Flair match without those names.
Oh,
Took you a minute, didn't it? Still haven't come up with one.
My mind is just blank. It's empty room right now.
She had the first Mania match with Ripley was solid. The later matches were not, when you could tell she wasn't anywhere near her and still trying to kick her. But there's not many satisfying Charlotte Flair matches. I do think the match was as good as it was going to be. There were spots that looked really snug, physical. I liked that. I just don't think within the context of the story they built, they told a story at all. So it was just a match for the sake of a match. They didn't have a good psychologically, fundamentally sound match. There were some cool stuff, some cool spots, but overall, it did nothing for me. It wasn't a bad match. It wasn't a horrible match, but it was a so-so match. It wasn't very memorable. Like, that's not a match I'm going to go back and watch later and go, huh, I really like that match. It was undistinguished, undefined. It was passable, but it wasn't a WrestleMania big match, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Match. I don't know if it did happen tonight. The New Day versus
Oh, I'm
Sheamus
pissed about
and
that.
Ridge Holland. I'm
Mhm.
shocked it didn't happen. I felt they
It
had
got
two
cut.
hours.
Sheamus just put a scissor emoji on his Twitter before people realized it got cut. You have a 2 hour pre-show that didn't feature any wrestling, and you spent. I'm maybe embellishing this because I'm just guessing. It felt like 30 minutes of advertisements throughout the show of stuff we'd
A
already
lot of
seen on the
advertisements.
pre-show, and stuff we're going to see tomorrow on the pre-show and the main show. You could have cut 5 minutes of that and at least given them time for the bell to ring. It didn't have. It's weird. Nobody was going out of their way to go, ooh, I'm watching the show to see Ridge Holland tonight. But for performers who work all year, you want to see them get a big WrestleMania match.
Yeah.
You don't take WrestleMania matches away from your performers when you have ample time and you use it foolishly.
Agreed. It's like booking a UFC card in the main event or the co-main event. You cut it for, just because a fight below under that went the distance, and supposedly they have no time for the pay-per-view. Like, no, you just give them their time. They earned that
You
spot on
could
the
have
card.
squeezed them in on the pre-show if you were worried about time constraints. You could have
Exactly.
cut
A
four of
2 hour
those.
pre-show.
You could have cut 4 of those 3-minute video packages, and boom, suddenly you have 12 minutes. Dedicate 4 minutes of that to entrances, and you have 8 minutes to give them a match. It's not a lot of time, but that match doesn't need a lot of time in the first place. Just give these guys their Mania spot that they earned. Like, as a fan, I'm not upset I didn't see Rich Holland and Sheamus versus New Day. I see it every week on SmackDown anyway, or I'm going to see it every week on SmackDown going forward anyway. I just don't understand. As a performer, I'd be very upset.
I don't want you don't want to be booked for a card and then you just get snipped at the very end because they have no time. But
It's not like
hopefully,
it's a random SmackDown or a random what's a throwaway pay per view. It's not like this was Money in the Bank and you're not in a ladder match. This is
yeah,
WrestleMania. Any spot on the card is a big deal.
I agree. My
Like,
mind
that
went
was
blank
just
right
a
now.
shame. I was upset about that. Um, we have 2 more matches to get to, I believe. The opener, and we'll go into this because this match went short
Yeah,
because they had to call it on the fly. Unfortunately, the guy I feel most for during this tonight is Rick Boogs. Wonderful dude. He's worked hard to get here, and he's getting popular, and he tore his quadricep tonight. Props to you, man. I hope you're never going to hear this. But on the very, very slight chance you do, I hope you get better.
praise to you, man.
Yeah.
Honestly,
So the Usos defeated Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. This for me felt, maybe it's because we've seen the match a bunch already, but it didn't feel like a WrestleMania match. I don't like that this opened. This could have been filler elsewhere. You should always open WrestleMania weekend with the. When I think of WrestleMania openers, I think of Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. I think of Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. I think of Bryan Danielson versus Triple H. I think of stuff like that. You know, you
something
always
memorable to
start
get the
with a
crowd excited for it.
barn burner wrestling match to get the crowd excited. Is how you should always open pay per views. I don't think this match did that. I don't think this match was ever going to do that because A, we've seen it a bunch, and B, it was just a quick 7-minute match, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the champions retained. I don't really have much to add to that. What were your thoughts on this?
I did not really look forward to this match at all. Of course, cut short sadly because of the injury. I didn't feel like this. Of course, should have opened it. Like I don't know. My mind of course doesn't work this right now. But a couple of years ago, I think what opened up WrestleMania was Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins versus The Miz.
34. That did open the show. It was The Miz.
And The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah.
Amazing opener. I was shocked.
I was at
It
that
fueled the
show.
crowd
Wonderful
up.
opener.
Oh, really? You were? That's
Yeah.
great.
It's
Um,
my
it
first of 2 WrestleManias so far.
it it hyped the crowd up. It blew up. It was great. It led everybody into a good show. But with this match, even I feel like without the injury, I feel like it still wouldn't have added like what we could have seen like for a big opener. And
Yeah.
it's
For me,
not
you
any of
always
their
get a
fault,
fast-paced match
but
opener because if you look back at all the great Mania cards, they were paced right. The match order was let the crowd get hype first and then put that match on second because WrestleMania 19, one of the best top to bottom paced cards they've ever had. The opener was a really fun match between Matt Hardy and Rey Mysterio. WrestleMania 30 was a really good opener between Bryan Danielson and Triple H. WrestleMania 10 had the best opener and one of the best stories ever told with Owen and Brett. WrestleMania 21 had a really fast-paced fun opener with Eddie and Ray. Like all of the big openers you can think of, for me that fell flat as an opener. Last year was the opener was Bobby and Drew, which is a fun physical match.
it was good match. Really good match.
Yeah. Which let's segue into the final match of the night: Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin. I actually liked this match a lot more than I was expecting to.
Before the match started, I was talking to my friends about it, and I was saying I'm not looking forward to this match. I'm probably gonna be bored of it because I felt like it was just a match we see all the time on SmackDown. Like
It
we're just,
is.
but um, I sat back, watched the match, and it was a really good match from start to finish. And I feel like they both had the moments, and plus with what happened towards the end of Drew McIntyre kicking out of the End of Days,
I
he
wanted to
is
hit on that. Yeah.
he is. They say he's the first person to kick
He is
out
the
of the
first
End of Days.
person. The
That is
very first
mind
person
blowing.
ever. One thing I love about the end of days, I'm going to compare it to an AEW finisher.
Okay.
The one winged angel has only ever been kicked out of one time. Kazuchika caught a guy's foot on the rope during their series of matches, but he didn't kick out of it.
Yeah.
It's the only time the one winged angel has ever been kicked out of was in 2012. Actually, twice, because I believe Hangman did it toward Full Gear, which is the right call for Hangman to be the first person to do it in AEW. But for years, the only person who had ever kicked out of it was Kota Ibushi at a DDT show. That finisher should be protected like that. And the End of Days is the only one in WWE that's ever gotten that protection. Why is it such a big deal when Adam Page kicks out of the One Winged Angel? Because nobody ever does it. And that's why it's a big deal when Drew McIntyre does it. Protect finishers more often. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in wrestling. Don't have everybody kick out of your finisher. And to WWE's credit, Baron Corbin's was the most protected in wrestling other than the One Winged Angel. And they saved it for a big deal, and it felt like a big deal. And you could tell by the crowd reaction, it was in fact a big deal.
Of course. With the win that Drew accomplished tonight, I at first thought what do you call it? Moss was going to turn face when
I
him and
love
Corbin.
Riddick Moss. Riddick Mo's my dude. That's my boy AC Slater.
I love that. When they were having problems, him and Corbin, I thought he was gonna turn face because he had just won the Under the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I thought he was gonna turn face and it would be like this big moment, but he didn't, of course. And McIntyre swinging that sword, I almost, I was like, he's gonna be charged with murder here, of course. But Drew winning this, I feel like moves him on from this. I'm hoping it moves him on from this feud with Corbin, and with the winner of tomorrow night's main event, I feel like he should get the winner of it. If, of course, Lashley doesn't get it.
But that's all for us. That's the last match. Final thoughts on this?
Great show. Night 1 was good. I loved it. I'm excited for night 2, how it goes out, the main event, how Edge versus AJ Styles. It's going to be a solid match.
That's going to be happening. And I'm excited. I'm not as excited for night 2's card. There's really not much that does much for me. But I think Pat McAfee and Austin Theory is going to be a fun car crash. So we'll see you. I don't know if we're going to be doing this post show tomorrow night. Probably not because I used the wrong overlay tonight. But I really enjoyed tonight's show. My final thought is that Bianca Belair has had 2 WrestleMania matches. The 2 greatest female WrestleMania matches of all time. She's about to be Miss WrestleMania. Because up until tonight, which it still might be, but tonight gives it a run for its money, the greatest WrestleMania women's match of all time was Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair last year.
Yes, it definitely does.
So where can we find you, Rami?
You can find me on Twitter, who else but Rami. And I write all about MMA. You can always check out my articles as soon as they are able to come out. And hopefully I'm able to talk more, do more podcasts, talk more about UFC, Bellator, and much more. But yes, you can find me on Twitter at who else but Rami. Follow me for all your MMA news.
And for me, who else but Jameus? Sorry, I kind of had to. You can find me at the Jameus on Twitter. I tweet about everything, but right now I've tweeted a lot about wrestling this weekend because it's a wrestling weekend. So next week, my Twitter feed will be annoyed with by opening day.
Next weekend for me is opening day,
by the way,
and UFC, so it's gonna be great.
But you can find me on Twitter at the Jameis. I produce the Code of Honor podcast, so make sure to follow them because Kyle and Kylie do a wonderful job. I produce quite a few of our other podcasts. Recently I've done the Tea and Tights with Dan and Andy. They're great. Follow all of Bodyslam's podcasts, but those guys are great too. For me, you can find me on Game Changer Weekly with Cassidy Haynes. Shout out to my boy Cass, who just changed his overlay literally as we were wrapping up. And I'm an editor at Bodyslam. I write news, but I do a lot more editing. I'm more of a behind the scenes guy at this point. But follow me on Twitter. Follow BodyslamNet. Corey's done a great job with the Twitter coverage recently. Bad Blood, BJ, the boys, Shane and Julian do a wonderful job with all of our post-show coverage. You can so if you want to see more of that, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel anyway, because you get to see a lot of this face. And if you want to support faces like this, faces like that, I think I pointed the wrong direction. No, there. I don't know.
He's got a point.
I'm not the brightest. So if you want to support faces like ours, you can buy your Bodyslam t-shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees, or you can support us on Slam Chats, which I'm still not sure what that is, but I need to have Cass explain that to me one day. But that's where we are. Follow us on Twitch. We're about to do a lot more Twitch content. Like us on Facebook. Like me on Facebook at the Jameis. If you want to see all of my writing stuff, not just Bodyslam, but in general. And of course, like this video, Leave a response on your thoughts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of wonderful content on our YouTube. Tea and Tights, Code of Honor, both are two of the best podcasts in wrestling. The Jabronis are doing a lot of good work. We have a number of different good content. BJ, Shane, and Julian do a wonderful job every post show. You don't want to not subscribe to our YouTube channel, so do that. And of course, enjoy night 2 of WrestleMania tomorrow night. We'll have another post show for you tomorrow night. Peace.
See ya.